The Sermon on the Mount, particularly the Beatitudes, stands as one of the most profound teachings in Christian theology, delivered by Jesus himself. It is a passage that not only defines the core of Christ's teachings, but also encapsulates the essence of Christian ethics. This sermon, delivered on a hill overlooking the Sea of Galilee, offered a radical new perspective on what it means to be blessed, turning societal values upside down. The Beatitudes begin with "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven," and proceed through a series of declarations that speak to the humble, the mourners, the meek, and the seekers of righteousness. Each beatitude builds upon the last, forming a ladder of spiritual progression that reaches towards the divine. These teachings were revolutionary, suggesting that the blessings of heaven are available not to the powerful and the proud, but to those who embody humility and righteousness. The geography of the area, a gentle slope on the Mount of Olives, provided a natural amphitheater that carried Jesus' voice to the large crowds. This setting was not chosen at random. Its openness and tranquility were ideal for the profound nature of the teachings. The Mount provided a serene backdrop, complementing the spiritual significance of the sermon. The choice of location also symbolized a higher spiritual plane. Jesus, by placing himself on a mount, was not only physically elevated above the crowd but also metaphorically elevated the spiritual level of his teachings. The natural beauty of the surroundings and the vast sky above may have given his listeners a sense of openness and receptivity, enhancing their experience of the profound teachings. The Sermon on the Mount was attended by a diverse group, including Jesus' 12 disciples and a large number of local inhabitants from nearby towns and villages. The disciples, who were closest to Jesus, had key roles during this event. They were not only there to learn but also to manage the gathering, helping to organize the crowd and ensure that the sermon could be heard by all. Their presence was vital, as they later carried these teachings to the rest of the world. Besides the disciples, the attendees included men, women, and children from various walks of life. Some were followers who had heard of Jesus' miracles and teachings and came out of a deep spiritual hunger. Others were likely skeptics, curious about this man whose reputation had grown so significantly. Each person, regardless of their initial reason for attending, found themselves part of a moment that would be looked back upon as a cornerstone of Christian teachings. The disciples, particularly Simon Peter, James, and John, were noted for their close interactions with Jesus. They often acted as intermediaries between Jesus and the rest of the attendees. Their responsibilities included explaining more complex ideas and parables that Jesus used, making the teachings accessible to everyone present. This interaction not only helped the attendees but also deepened the disciples' understanding of Jesus' messages. The physical arrangement of the crowd seated on the grassy slopes of the mount also facilitated a sense of community and equality. There was no special seating or distinction of rank. Everyone, regardless of social status, was there to receive wisdom. This arrangement was emblematic of the messages in the Beatitudes, which emphasized the values of humility and community. Delivering the Sermon on the Mount was undoubtedly an emotionally charged experience for Jesus. Each beatitude not only conveyed spiritual principles, but also reflected Jesus' deep empathy for the human condition. His voice, infused with compassion and authority, reached out to the deepest needs and sufferings of his listeners. He spoke to the poor, the mourned, the meek, and those who thirsted for righteousness, offering them hope and a promise of divine fulfillment. Imagining the scene, one can sense the profound silence among the crowd, punctuated only by Jesus' voice as he delivered each beatitude. The emotional impact on the attendees must have been intense, as they felt understood and seen by these words. For many, the sermon was not just a teaching, it was a personal encounter with divine compassion and wisdom, stirring deep spiritual awakenings and conversions. Jesus, fully aware of the hardships faced by his listeners, tailored his message to offer not only comfort, but also guidance on how to live a life that aligns with God's will. His assurances that the kingdom of heaven belongs to those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake would have been particularly poignant, resonating with those who had suffered injustice and hardship. Furthermore, the serene setting may have amplified the emotional resonance of the sermon. The gentle breeze, the warmth of the sun, and the panoramic views of the Galilean landscape would have contributed to a sense of peace and solemnity, making the spiritual teachings all the more impactful. Section 4. Logistical aspects, setting up and weather conditions. Organizing an event like the Sermon on the Mount required significant preparation and foresight, especially considering the number of attendees. The disciples likely played a crucial role in coordinating the gathering, guiding people to the location, and managing the crowd during the sermon. Such logistics were vital to ensure that everyone could hear Jesus' words without disturbance. The weather also played a crucial role in the day's events. Historical records and geographical studies suggest that the climate in Galilee during this period was mild, with gentle breezes coming off the lake. This not only made it comfortable for the large crowd but also helped carry Jesus' voice across the listeners. Clear skies and moderate temperatures were ideal for an outdoor gathering, contributing to the overall success of the event. Preparations would have included early arrivals of the disciples to scout the location and arrange for necessary provisions like water and food. While the Bible does not detail these logistical elements, it is reasonable to assume that such practical matters were handled to facilitate the smooth delivery of such an important message. The natural amphitheater-like setting of the Mount of Olives also contributed to the logistics. Its slopes provided a natural seating arrangement which allowed the sound to travel upwards and outwards, making it easier for the message to be heard clearly by the gathered multitude. This not only shows the disciples' understanding of the terrain, but also their ability to utilize it to enhance the delivery of Jesus' sermon. Section 5. The impact and legacy of the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount, and specifically the Beatitudes, left an indelible mark on all who heard it and on generations to come. Immediately following the sermon, many attendees were transformed, experiencing a new understanding of what it meant to live a life blessed by God. This transformation was not limited to spiritual insight, it also included a radical shift in how individuals viewed themselves and their relationships with others. The teachings of the Beatitudes spread far beyond the initial listeners, carried forth by the disciples who traveled across lands to share the message of Jesus. The principles of humility, mercy, and peacemaking have permeated various aspects of human culture and have been integrated into the moral and ethical frameworks of countless communities and societies throughout history. Moreover, the Sermon on the Mount has been a subject of countless interpretations and studies, influencing not only religious thought but also shaping legal and social norms. Its impact can be seen in the works of influential figures like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., who drew upon the teachings to advocate for nonviolence and civil rights. In conclusion, the Sermon on the Mount stands as a cornerstone of Christian ethics and continues to inspire individuals to pursue a deeper, more meaningful existence. Its legacy endures, a testament to the power of profound spiritual insights delivered on a quiet hillside, under the open sky, some 2,000 years ago.